Hello and welcome. Today we're diving into something pretty fascinating. It's based on Dexter Diaz's book, The 10 Types of Human, and we're going to explore why we sometimes act in ways that completely surprise ourselves, especially when the heat is on.
So let me just ask you, straight up, when you're stressed out, when you're scared, or you're in one of those really tricky situations, who do you actually become? It's a tough question, I know, but it's at the absolute core of what we're talking about today. You've heard this a million times, right? Maybe you've even said it yourself. Oh, I would never do that. It's a comforting thought, this idea that our character is basically set in stone. But, as we're about to see, that might just be one of the most dangerous assumptions we make about ourselves.
And that brings us to our first big idea, the pressure test. This is where we really start to poke holes in that belief. You know, the one that says our morals are fixed, that they're unchangeable no matter what life throws at us.
Yeah, we love to think of our character as this fortress, right? With these huge, impenetrable walls. But what Diaz argues is that extreme situations, things like pressure, fear, even power, can reveal all these hidden doors and secret passages that we had no idea were even there. The person you are on a calm Tuesday afternoon might be a totally different person in a crisis. So if we're often so wrong about how we'd act, what is going on? Well, this next part gets right to the heart of the problem. We have a fundamental misunderstanding of what actually drives people to do the things they do.
And that leads us to this really key concept the book talks about, the identity fallacy. You've seen this happen. It's our tendency to see one bad action and immediately slap a label on the person. We say, they are a bad person. We jump straight to judging their entire identity, instead of, looking at the behavior and the situation it happened in.
And this is the giant piece of the puzzle that we almost always miss. We're so focused on the individual that we totally overlook these powerful, invisible forces that are pushing and pulling on them. I'm talking about group dynamics, the pressure from authority, or just the environment you find yourself in. These things can have a massive impact on our actions.
Okay, so if we're getting it wrong, how do we start to get it right? This brings us to the central idea of the book, a completely new framework for understanding ourselves and everybody else.
Now, this is a really crucial point. These 10 types, they aren't personality tests. This isn't about putting people into neat little boxes. It's much more like a map of all the potential behaviors, the different roles that can bubble up to the surface in any of us if the conditions are right. The book breaks it down into 10 of these core patterns of behavior. 10 different modes that we can slip into when we're faced with a tough moral choice. And here they are. I mean, just look at this list. You can immediately see the incredible range of what we're all capable of. On one hand, you've got the aggressor lurking in there, but on the other, you've got the nurturer and the rescuer. See, these aren't 10 types of people. They're 10 different paths that any single one of us could go down.
Just knowing this map exists is the first step. The real power, though, comes from what you do with that information. So this next part is all about turning that recognition into a real, conscious choice.
This right here is the whole shift in a nutshell. We're moving away from that old judgmental view, right? Where one bad act equals a permanently bad person. Instead, we move to a place of understanding, where we see that same act and think, that is a specific type of behavior and action. That little change in perspective, it changes everything.
So, and this is the main takeaway, the goal isn't to get better at pointing fingers at other people. The real power comes when you turn that lens around on yourself. It's about gaining the self-awareness to see which type is starting to show up in you, and then actively choosing how you want to respond. Just knowing isn't enough. You have to choose.
So how do you actually do that when your heart's pounding and the pressure's on? In this last section, we're going to boil it all down to a simple, practical tool you can start using like today.
Here it is, a super simple practice for those high-stress moments. First, just pause. Hit the brakes on that knee-jerk reaction, even if it's just for 30 seconds. Second, ask yourself, okay, which type is taking over right now? Am I being the aggressor, the tribalist? And then, third, and this is the most important part, choose. Which type do I want to be instead? How can I call on the rescuer or the nurturer in this moment? And this quote from the book really just sums it all up perfectly. It starts with recognition. Once you can see these patterns in yourself, you gain this incredible power, not just to understand why you do things, but to actually decide who you're going to be next. And that leaves us with one final thought. This framework, it's not a sentence, it's a map. It's a map of the complicated, messy, amazing territory that is a human being. So the only question left is,
Now that you have the map, where are you going to choose to go?